We're reading from That Alone, a commentary on the Atmopadesh Satakam by Guru Nitya Chaitanya Yati. We have now come to verse number 40. This verse says, there are shortcuts to kicks, but not to realization. Verse number 40. In sameness and in the other, each one's qualifying force always comes and becomes established. By the fluctuating function of these two, which comprises all, everything becomes the object of awareness. Commentary. I want to give you a special instruction. Let us meditate together. The first sentence centers around the idea of I. The reference to I is very specific. When I say, I want to give you, I am differentiating you from me, and when I mention a special instruction, the emphasis is on something very specific. So in the first sentence, our minds are drawn again and again to specific notions. When I say, let us meditate together, no limitation was set. The word us might be a reference to all the people in the room or all the people in the world. There is an all-inclusiveness with no reference to an I. It is a very extensive way of looking at things. Furthermore, the quality of meditative awareness is a uniting, synthesizing, pacifying one. It is important to realize there is no contradiction between the first sentence, I want to give you special instruction, and the second, let us meditate together. One is complementary to the other. Although one sentence refers to everything specific and the other to everything general, there is a perfect harmony and complementarity between the two. In this special context, the one is not opposed to the other. There can be many other occasions when the notions around the I are centralized and all else is excluded from it, and that becomes a selfish motivation where others are deprived of their proper integration in the situation. Similarly, if all inclusiveness becomes as a regimentation, such as all people of the state should behave in a certain way, then we have a totalitarian dictatorship, taking away individuals' inalienable rights to decide for themselves. So we have to be very careful with these concepts and understand them correctly, or they can very easily become evil. The personal reference can be beneficial, since only when we turn inward and centralize ourselves do we get an orientation of knowledge. It is necessary to return again and again to the center. Knowledge should also be able to expand its horizon to include as much as possible. In this way, it becomes a pulsation in which consciousness moves from the center to the periphery and back again. You can intensely think of yourself, gather your thoughts, your emotions, and your sensations, and bring them all to the center of your consciousness. Then you can change the locus of that consciousness by shifting the center. For instance, you can bring it to the center of your eyebrows. With your mind, you can meditate on Om. You place that Om exactly in between your eyebrows and mentally meditate Om, Om, Om. It gives a certain special effect. Then you can shift it to the throat center, making that source of sound the center of your whole consciousness. Then you can repeat the mantra Om, Om, Om. It's different from what you do between the eyebrows. You can bring the center of your consciousness to your heart. Your breathing, inhaling and exhaling, can be felt there. Having found the rhythmic movement of your respiration, if you centralize your consciousness there and say Om, 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 it changes the tone of the experience, its texture and shading. You can then bring it to the navel and experience your lower abdomen as the center of the system. Within the navel, you can meditate Om, Om, Om. It can be further shifted to the genitals, Om, 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 and finally to the tip of the spine, Om, Om, Om. You have been repeating the same thing, concentrating the mind in the center and saying the same mantra, but the effect is always different. Whatever we do, we alternate the unifying and differentiating effects of the mind. Again, you can think of the several parts of your body separately, such as the head, trunk, hands, legs, the little finger as different from the thumb, sight as different from hearing, the experience of touch as different from taste. There is no end to such possible differentiations in the body. All these are united when you say, I am. In the knowledge of I am, you don't experience the difference between taste and smell, body and mind, or whatever. Individuals can be separately known, with the mind seeing each as a special person. Then you can forget names and peculiarities and generalize along the lines of those of us who gather here to meditate together. Then the names and features of each person vanish. It is not advantageous to pay attention to only half of any dialectical situation. A harmonious, balanced life requires us to go from the specific to the generic and then back to the specific. Both have their own special dynamism and their own special perspectives to add. For instance, if I do not think of myself as a separate individual with an I as the agent of my knowledge, enjoyment, and action, I will not be able to motivate and carry out actions with any efficiency. But if I become stuck in the notion of I will become alienated from the rest of society. I won't be able to rise up and identify myself as also belonging to that which is in all other bodies. I will become helplessly self-centered. I need to realize myself from individualistic imprisonment within the body to cooperate with all and receive cooperation from all. Sharing with all is mutually beneficial as I become an integral part of a composite whole such as the society, the world, or the universe. If I expand my consciousness from my physical self to my family, I can see how every member of the family is so dear. This feeling can be further expanded to include other human beings and even pets who share our life, then broaden to the collective community of the environment, the country, the culture as a whole, its history and future possibilities. The entire universe can even be included with its millennia of history and its macrocosmic and microcosmic aspects, such as the musical dance of the galaxies and the miracles going on within the depths of atoms. From subatomic particles to galactic supergroups, it can all be brought under one scheme of understanding. When time and space fade out, our consciousness is no longer within the body. We can meditate on a world without us in it, without any of the consciousness we normally confine in the body. It is so refreshing, so releasing, not to be tied down to a heavy body on earth, to become one with the evanescent wind and the blue expanse of sky, to dissipate ourselves into the vibration of the sound that fills the whole universe, to become part of the thermodynamics of the universe, to become an electrical wave in the grand electromagnetic field. Think of these great varieties and wide possibilities of identification. What is there you cannot become through the sheer power of identity? All the great meanings and purposes we thought we had can fade away to nothingness. We see the whole world as a myth. You are a myth. I am a myth. In the next moment, we can be very definitive. We can fill our minds with a certain purpose, become charged with a great urge, feel that something is the mission of our whole lives, that we have to do it. Thus comes compulsion, stress, urgency. But we can also say, there is no such urgency. Never mind. It's all okay. There is no such entity called I anywhere. It's all an imagination. Your consciousness can tighten up and make you feel like a bundle, a compact body. The same consciousness can also release you from that tightening up and make you feel as free as a passing wind. As Jesus said, the wind bloweth whither it listeth. Such is your freedom. Narayana Guru says, even though the possibilities of these two ways of thinking are endless, one centralizing in your I and making everything specific and particular, and the other expanding you, identifying you with the cosmic whole, generalizing and liberating everything. It all can be gathered under two categories, the unifying and the specifying. Consciousness is an eternal fluctuation between these two fulcrums. It zips about, now rotating around the hub of specificity, now changing to rotate around the hub of generality. In this way, it enables you to know everything. If you go on reducing the differences in consciousness, taking away one after the other, ultimately there is no difference at all between the knower and the known in the state of total transcendence. Then you are in a state of absorption, of samadhi, with no modulations, no modification of consciousness. The other extreme is that you become infatuated with a single idea. It captures your mind so much that you become blind to the rest of the world. It makes you idiotic, stupefied. We call someone stupid because they are stupefied with just one idea. They have lost their bearings and have no orientation to the bigger picture. You should not get stuck in one single idea, nor get lost in generalities. In a healthy life, there is a constant fluctuation between these two possibilities. Out of this fluctuating perspective arises our idea of the world. This doesn't come about through any effort on our part. It happens of its own accord. In this verse, we are not trying to do anything in particular. It is only a familiarization with our own self, a familiarization with the mechanism of how consciousness functions within us when it is left to itself. Coming to the spiritual part of it, once you know that your mind is so engineered that it fluctuates between the specific and the generic, between a psychological and a cosmological orientation, and that all these are natural functionings, it is a great relief. It removes some of the load of responsibility you have saddled yourself with. Instead of forcing your mind to follow certain patterns, you can just think, this is natural. It is my nature that my mind becomes centralized and the I consciousness tightens up. And it is also my nature that I become sober and pacified. You become aware of consciousness as such, getting involved in these twofold functions. One who can cultivate the neutral attitude where he or she becomes a witness to the twofold fluctuation of consciousness becomes a real contemplative. And the free translation of verse 40 is, their specific powers alternate between synthesis and analysis. Even though the contexts of operation are innumerable, the dual functions of the assumption of the agency of the subject and the knowledge of the object belong entirely to these two entities.